I'm up to changing the way the world reads. And the way we're doing that is by revolutionizing reading. And the reason we're doing that is because I struggle to read myself. I'm dyslexic, I'm neurodiverse, I have ADHD, and reading has always been a pain point. And what that means is I've missed out on a lot of opportunities to digest and learn a lot of wisdom that's out there. So to me, I want to be able to read. And because of that, we're building technology to change the way the world reads and revolutionize how we read with technology to make it easier to do, to keep our focus, and so we don't lose our place.
Hey, Summit Chasers, you are listening to Voices of Impact, the podcast where you broaden your awareness to the various issues across the globe, learn about the amazing people who are working to solve them, and get inspired to chase your own summit with actionable strategies. It starts right now. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on Voices of Impact. I am with Lulu Waters of Lexibl, and I'm so excited to talk to her about what it is that she's doing so that we can share what she is working towards. So to kick us off, Lulu, what is a pivotal moment that has really shaped where you are today?
Yes, thank you. Adrena, first off, thank you for having me. And the pivotal moment that shaped where I am today is I've been really lucky to overcome some insurmountable obstacles. And because of that, I have this drive and resilience and the ability to be able to go after what I want. So I have no fear. When you have no fear of death, you have no fear of life. And so I live life to the fullest. And that's something that's really helped get me to where I am today.
That's beautiful. What were some of those insurmountable things that you went through, if you don't mind me asking?
Thank you. I've been really lucky to be able to look death in the eye, had a near death experience. And when you have a near death experience, it really shapes your world. I had one at 20 years old. And when that happened, it was terrifying at the time, but it's given me this perspective since I was 20 to be able to look at the world in a very different way. And so I've been able to chase after many, many summits, have a lot of fun, but at the same time, have no fear of life because I have no fear of death.
Yeah, I cannot imagine facing something like that and the impact that it would have on you and just how you live every single day. So talk to us a little bit about your mission and what it is that you are working on every single day.
Sure. So I'm up to changing the way the world reads. And the way we're doing that is by revolutionizing reading. And the reason we're doing that is because I struggle to read myself. I'm dyslexic, I'm neurodiverse, I have ADHD, and reading has always been a pain point. And what that means is I've missed out on a lot of opportunities to digest and learn a lot of wisdom that's out there. So to me, I want to be able to read. And because of that, we're building technology to change the way the world reads and revolutionize how we read with technology to make it easier to do, to keep our focus, and so we don't lose our place.
Interesting. What are the stats on dyslexia as far as how many
The
people
stats are,
struggle with it?
yeah, it's surprisingly large. So it's 1 in 5 people are dyslexic,
Wow.
and 1 in 3 people are neurodiverse. So if you take those statistics, but specifically around neurodiversity, that's 2.7 billion people, and that's 111 million people in the United States. We're everywhere, and we're not really able to interact with things the way neurotypical people are. But what I've learned is that when we build for people that are neurodiverse, we build for everybody. We actually improve systems and efficiencies and processes and procedures because we think differently. Our brains are actually wired differently.
Yeah, and I think having that in the workspace is a huge advantage. And I think that it's something that not all companies might look for or want to like dive into that. And I think that it's a huge missed opportunity because like you said, when you're neurodiverse, you think differently, you see things in a different way, you might problem solve in a different way, and all of those things can be so beneficial to having thought diversity at the table when you are troubleshooting a huge thing. So talk to me a little bit about that, your work experience, and what are some of the things, maybe some of the challenges that you've faced along the way.
Certainly. So some challenges I faced, I've only disclosed one time with the exception of my own companies. So I've only disclosed one time, and I within 2 weeks had a write-up because I made a typo that was inconsequential. It didn't affect anything, wasn't financially related. It was a simple typo. And there's a terminology called masked, which just think of Halloween and how you put a mask on. In the neurodiverse world, people wear masks and we are working more and more to unmask. So I'm more and more unmasked. It takes stripping away shame, stigma, embarrassment. It takes willing to be your whole self
Mhm.
and unapologetically. And in the work environment, we need all people. We need all thinking styles. We need
Yep.
all different kinds of mindsets. There's a lot of gaps in thinking. And so while I'm great in some areas, there are other areas that other people are great in. So
Mhm.
at Lexibl, we have a mixed team. We have neurodiverse and neurotypical people, and also from all different types of backgrounds. It's really important to get as
Yeah.
many thinking styles in the room as you can so that you can look at all the gaps. And the gaps are great things to find. Those are where the opportunities are.
Yeah, 100%. I could not agree with more with you on that. That's something that we talk about a lot. If you're focusing in on true diversity, I personally don't think that it's down to how it's typically spoken about, which is race. I think that it comes from, I think that if you go for thought diversity, you're naturally going to bring different cultures, different races. You're naturally going to bring those things in because, like you said, you're looking for the gaps. And when you're from a different culture or neurodiverse, whatever it might be, you are naturally going to bring a huge diverse amount of people into your company if you focus on your gaps. So I love that that's something that you guys are actively doing at Lexibl to make sure that you're filling that room with the thought diversity needed in order to create something that is going to be life changing for a lot of people.
Yes,
How,
and to speak on that for a second,
yeah.
when we talk about race, we're really talking about culture, right?
Hmm.
When we talk about different skin tones, which is what a lot of people put race under, which is unfortunate because that's a simple thing called melanin.
Yeah.
It's this very simple pigmentation in your skin. We all have it. We all have different versions. So the fact that we
Mhm.
look at that is mind blowing to me. The fact that we judge people on that is mind blowing to me. But
Right.
really, what we want to look at is culture. So if you're
Yeah.
bringing in people from all cultural backgrounds, you have a really diverse culture at your company, and you'll
Mhm.
naturally have a lot of thought lines to be able to
Right.
see those gaps. And so that's what I look for as I build Lexibl for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that you put that is perfect. And I love that you highlighted the fact that you're right. Like it's the simple level of melanin in our skin and that's all it is. So if we're focusing in on the cultural aspect, we're going to have the thought diversity needed in order to build something really incredible. So talk to me a little bit about the technology behind what it is you guys are creating.
Yeah, so this is the exciting part because I'm an inventor and I love taking things apart, figuring out how they work and making them better. So with Lexibl, I don't know if you've ever read Adrena and Lost Your Place or if you've ever
For
read
sure.
and skipped a word. Yeah.
Mhm.
So one thing we do is wherever you are reading is wherever you pick up. So we have a way to focus in on the document or whatever you're reading. And that where you leave, if you have to jump on a call or you have to take care of your child or something happens and you get interrupted, you can pick up right where you left off. That's one thing that we're missing in technology. We have the IP on that. We've invented it, which is very cool. And we're very excited about that because that's a pretty game-changing technology. And then in addition, we strip away the environment in reading to make it as simple as possible. So we're really excited to be able to not only bring Lexibl, launch Lexibl, to start to partner with much larger corporations to shift and revolutionize how people are reading and to make it easier to do, a little funner to do because sometimes you have to read things that you don't want to read, but you
Yeah,
need to read them and understand them. And so
sure.
a way to get through them in a way that's more supportive of how you like to read.
I would imagine that that'll also lead to almost revolutionizing how training is handled too, especially in the corporate world where if we're remote, a lot of times we are reading something. Maybe it's in Trainual or it's in Guru or it's just a doc that has been put together. When reading might not come naturally or it might be a struggle for somebody, that can be really hard for them to then digest and understand what it is that they need to learn in order for the role that they're in. So how do you see it shaping that aspect?
Yeah, so anything, think of employee handbooks, training, learning and
Hmm.
development, any areas that you need to concentrate and focus on. those are areas we can plug into and literally shift how the document is able to be read. We are what's called a Lexibl document format on the back end. And so we're a visual translation engine. And of course we're AI, but we're a type of AI that's analytical. And so we're looking at documents, translating them over and putting them into this Lexibl document format that's easy and streamlined to read. And so for me, like being able to read something and anyone else out there that struggles, if you get lost in the reading environment, this is a way to start to hone in on exactly where you want to read and what you want to read and get
Mm.
that done a lot faster. Of course, no one has any extra time.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. I also just thought, like, have you guys thought or do you plan to take it into schools too? Because while it's going to be hugely impactful for the corporate space or just adults in general, I would imagine also there's a lot of kids that maybe dyslexia has gone undiagnosed for them and or ADHD, whatever it might be. And so reading is a real struggle for them. Do you guys have any plans to be able to make it easier for kids?
Absolutely. So where we pick up is fifth grade and
Okay.
beyond, all the way up into higher education and then workforce. So think about anytime you're at work and you need to read and understand a document. The reason we pick up at fifth grade is because that's where you need to read and understand or comprehend to be able to
Comprehension, yeah.
graduate fifth grade. Yeah. And before that, we're not really a good fit. I know an amazing founder named Carla Reisic who's building technology for K through 5 for dyslexia, but for us, we pick up at fifth grade.
Very cool. And what does that look like for the younger generation? So how is
Yeah,
it, how does your product actually get used in schools, let's say?
ideally, the way I see this working is with strategic partnerships through the computers that go into the schools, and Lexibl just becomes part of the system. So same way you have, different apps on your computer, you might have different types of ways to read documents or access the internet, different browsers. You would have Lexibl as a reading utility so that we really can change the way the world's reading and revolutionize that to make it easier and easier at an earlier age for people.
Mhm.
That's how I see that working. Yeah.
So Lexibl is an app then,
Lexibl is a
essentially?
web-based application.
Okay.
So Lexibl is actually a document format.
Okay.
That's what we are. And so as we move out into different file types, so right now we convert PDFs into LDFs, and then we'll be moving into different areas. So yes, think of if you go on Chrome, you'll be able to access Lexibl there. As you
Hmm.
go into Word and different file types, we have a whole roadmap for how we're going through and converting different file types.
Very cool. And
So
as far
anywhere,
as,
think
oh,
about,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, think about anywhere you read. So reading is ubiquitous. Lexibl will be ubiquitous across file types. That's very important to us.
That's very cool. And where are you guys right now as far as accessibility?
Meaning,
Meaning, can people currently access Lexibl, and if so, how?
great. Okay, that's what you're. Wasn't
Yeah.
sure. So I'm like, that's what we do. It's accessibility.
Yeah,
So
right.
yes, we have early access. Yeah, we have early access open on our website. People can apply. We are starting to onboard people. It's a process. Once we have certain features ready and we have our development a little further along, then we'll do a full scale launch. But right now, for anyone who's interested, they're welcome to join our waiting list. We do have one going and we will move you on to Lexibl as quickly as possible. We're really excited to get the feedback from people reading on Lexibl to see how we can continuously improve and make it better and better by partnering with our readers.
Got it. That's really cool. I think being able to take in that user feedback and then adapt things, like you said, just to continue to improve upon what it is that you guys are putting out there to make that reading process even easier is really a cool way to go about it. As far as Lexibl goes, how long have you guys been working on developing the technology?
Yeah, so I started and then recruited our team in 2023. I started this
Okay.
in at the end of 2020 as part of COVID. I had this idea. We started as a very different product, still around reading. And then as we did a design prototype and really understood that we're onto something here, we brought on a team. We're very lucky. Our CTO, Felix Chan, is phenomenal, and our lead engineer, Heller Zhu, phenomenal and innovative in development, as well as Elva Linscott, our chief program officer. And one thing we're really excited about is I don't know if you've ever tried to get support on a tech product and have trouble doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. It's really tough, and writing is very tough for me. So we're working to make sure that how we do our support for our readers is easy and built into Lexibl so that you don't have this pain point or this bottleneck of having any type of issue and then
Mhm.
trying to figure out how to actually use tech support. That's something that's very important to us. So that's where we're tracking to make sure all of that's ready before we do a full scale launch.
That's very cool. What are some of the challenges that you guys have faced over the last couple of years?
Well, as an early stage startup, we move fast and we pivot. That just means like we shift direction very quickly based on patterns of feedback.
Yeah.
And I'm a lifetime entrepreneur, so for me, I'm very grateful that I remain open-minded. I'm
Mhm.
constantly looking at patterns of feedback and shift quickly. Remaining capitalized is always a challenge for a startup. And so right now
Yeah.
we've raised a round, we're raising a second round, making sure we're capitalized. And then secondly, in AI, it's a very fast moving field, right? Very fast moving. It requires a
Yeah.
lot of compute power. So that's where we're putting a lot of our energy right now is making sure we have that ready so that as we sort of open up Lexibl, make it available for the world, that we can support and make sure that everyone's really well taken care of. There's nothing worse than getting on a tech product, not knowing how to use it, and not being able to get support. So those are some areas that we're really looking at right now before we do our launch. And of
What do you
course, we
think?
want to know how we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And
Yeah.
I think that that's really great to focus in on because like you said, the support aspect of tech can be very, very frustrating. So to be working on that and aware of that going into it, I think is going to serve very, very well. What would you say are some of the skills? Because you just said that you're basically a serial entrepreneur. What would you say are
Mhm.
some of the skills that have served you the most in being able to be on the entrepreneurial path?
Yeah, so I used to rock climb. I'm very active. I have a lot of hobbies. So one of those was indoor climbing. I still have all my gear, and when I get a chance, I love to go climb. I think of being a startup founder or an entrepreneur in general as being willing to climb the mountain while falling and while bleeding. And you figure it all out as you go and not
Right.
having any fear of the fall, just embracing
Yes.
it, surrendering to it, and continuing forward anyways.
Mhm.
It's daunting, I'm not gonna lie. It's very daunting, but
Yeah.
you can do it. Like I can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah. And I think what you actually just said makes me think back to what you said when you started off with not having any fear of death because you faced it. So the
Mhm.
entrepreneurial side is probably like, I got this. Like, whatever's going to happen, I'm going to figure it out.
Exactly. Confidence and belief in yourself definitely
Yeah,
helps. And if you ever don't have that, to remember your mission. When you're driven by a mission, it's a different type of motivation. Even
right.
on the lowest lows and the toughest days, there's still a mission to accomplish, and that drives me forward.
Yeah, and I think that that's huge. That's something that I hear quite a bit when I'm talking to different guests on Voices of Impact because going by the name, there are people that are wanting to actively make a very large difference. And that has been a consistent pattern throughout them being able to push through some of the struggles that they face, or maybe they're getting pushback. And when they're trying to get a bill approved, whatever it might be, that mission is so so key. And I'll add that within Summit Chasers, when we're working with our clients, we are very very mission focused. And it doesn't really matter what your business is, there has to be a reason outside of you making money that is the reason why
Yeah,
you're doing what you're doing, right? Because that's
for
what's going to
sure.
be enough to get really great people involved so that you can make the largest impact in your community or whatever it might be. So mission, I think mission is a huge piece that if you don't get it, you're not gonna you're not gonna keep going when things get tough. So I think that's huge. And again, your mission being, sum it up for us, making reading,
Revolutionizing reading.
revolutionizing
Yep,
reading.
revolutionizing. Absolutely.
It's such a key part of our day too. Like we're constant, like if you think about how many
Yes.
times throughout the day you read, it's
Yeah,
everywhere. It's everywhere.
do you want to know really interesting statistics, right? I'm a numbers
Yeah.
person. So lawyers read over half their day. Students read a quarter of their week, so quite a few hours.
Wow.
Working professionals spend a third of their day reading, a third of their day. Imagine being able to overhaul that experience and get through it quicker and faster. But more importantly, actually having a deeper understanding of what you're reading. That's the big issue is
Yeah.
our focus is so scattered. We're pulled in a lot of directions more than ever. And
Hmm.
that's okay, right? That's how the world is going. But at the same time, when you do really need to be able to understand something, you don't have a lot of extra time and you don't have a lot of extra mental bandwidth to
Brain
try to
capacity.
understand new reading environments every time you read. And so our goal and what we're doing by revolutionizing reading is having a uniform reading environment that your reading goes into. So it always comes up the same for you. So it's predictable, it's understandable, and you don't have
Mhm.
to try to find your way through documents.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
cool. And I didn't realize those stats, but it makes a whole lot of sense. And then if you take it just a step further outside of like your work or your school or whatever it might be, when you're driving, we're constantly reading signs, right? When you're trying to decide where you want to go to eat, you're constantly reading, you're reading menus. Reading is absolutely everywhere. So to be able to revolutionize it and make it more fun, easier to understand, especially for like yourself struggling with dyslexia and
Yeah.
not always being the easiest thing for you to do, I think is such a huge thing to tie into. How would you say that the work you're doing has shaped you?
Yeah, it's had a significant impact on me. So this company in particular, in technology is a very interesting world. I mean, I live in Silicon Valley, so I'm in the middle of it. I'm in the heart of it.
Mhm.
Our office is next door to the Apple, figure 8 building. It's a really beautiful piece of architecture. One thing I've learned is that there's a lot of people that care and are building to make a difference, right? And when you're building to make a difference, you start to meet other people and you start to create these groups of people that are driven by mission. And so that's one thing I've learned. The other thing I've learned is a tremendous amount of personal growth and development because in order to be a CEO for each stage of the company, you have to be able to be the person to lead at that stage of the company.
Right.
Leading a company with, one people or four people or six people or 10 people is one thing, then moving to 50, 100, and so on and so forth. And also how the technology moves forward, the amount of knowledge I've learned and how to build technology, how to do product visioning, product road mapping, how to bring systems into place, operational systems, how to make sure we're automating and using AI as much as we
Yeah.
can in our day-to-day operations. It's really fun to be on the forefront of that and to see what's really happening and how much good there's going to be from it. Now, I know there's other sides to that, but on our end, we really believe that technology can do great things for people. Great
Hmm.
things. Like imagine trying to be able to uh, you know, watch a show before closed captioning came out. Now, closed
Yeah.
captioning, not only people who are hearing impaired, but everybody can actually see what's being said on the screen. And I
Hmm.
think of reading needs to go the same direction, right? That we need to move it into a direction that it's uniform and that it's in a way and a method that everybody has access to it and gets it in the same way.
Right. Yeah, I could not agree more. And I think what you said there about the skill development and having to constantly improve. I
Yeah.
was having a conversation the other day around like entrepreneurism and what's the difference because I left a corporate space and went into now being an entrepreneur. And if you want to challenge yourself, go decide to start your own business. You will
Yeah,
not be
please.
bored.
If you want to know who you are,
Yeah,
just become an entrepreneur because
exactly.
you have to look in the mirror. You don't, great entrepreneurs, great CEOs, they point the finger here, not out. They never
100%.
point it out. You're always looking in a mirror. So
Yeah.
not only do we have a coaching culture at Lexibl, we have a conscious culture. We seek to understand and we have an algorithm in our language and how we communicate that we seek to
Hmm.
understand people from the get-go because when you build a culture, not only including other cultures, but you build a culture of communication and a seek to understand policy, you
Hmm.
really build a way to talk and understand each other and how to move things forward with very different lenses, right?
Yeah.
Different lenses and different points of view where many times people would be disagreeing. You
Hmm.
actually get to seek to understand. So you get to enjoy someone else's lens on something. You get to
Hmm.
enjoy why they're thinking the way they're thinking, not wonder why. Actually be curious and
Yeah.
embrace that why they're saying what they're saying and where they're coming from. That's a very different way to build a company. And that's one thing I've
Absolutely.
learned to do with Lexibl that I really love. So we all get to develop as we build and grow together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. When you brought up you're constantly looking in the mirror, one of our core values at Summit Chasers, we call it window mirror maturity. And it's when when you have a big win, you are pointing out the window to your team. The success is on
Yep.
them. They are the ones who got you that goal, whatever it might have been. And then when things go wrong, you're pointing in the mirror and you're taking responsibility for what you didn't communicate right, or how you could have worked with somebody specific a little bit harder in order to make sure that they understood the expectations. You're not pointing at them saying they did that wrong. It's on you. It's on you as the leader. It's on you as the
Exactly.
CEO to understand what you need to take responsibility for and improve. So that is music to my ears, as well as I absolutely love the seek to understand part too. I think that is I want fairly unique, I would say, to build a company around that culture, but one that is so needed, because I think far too
It's
often we are, no, I don't like that. I'm not going to listen to you, even though you come from a completely different background. To seek to understand is such a beautiful way to look at communicating with your leadership team, with your employees, whatever it might be. And it's going to allow you to lead with a much more open heart and open mind too. So I think that that's really incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a background in executive and leadership coaching.
Mm,
And to me, it's very important to me, the communication, especially being neurodiverse. I have a different style of communication. I'm
right.
very literal, I'm very direct, and sometimes that can be misunderstood. And also, people on my team have very different ways of communicating, which we want. So, the first thing someone learns when they join Lexibl is our echo back, which is the algorithm in language. And it can be a very interesting experience. I've actually taken time with the team to say, hey, when you first joined, what was it like for you? What was your experience like? And how can we make it easier when we onboard other people to jump into our culture and bridge that gap quicker? And so I'm learning as we bring people on board from them how to make it
Yeah.
easier and easier to integrate, because we do have a very unique culture and it is
Yeah.
intentional. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I absolutely love that. And I think that it's so important as a CEO to hone in on that and really be mindful of the culture that you're building. And when you build it right, you're going to attract the right people. You're going to attract people that bring so much value and they believe in your culture. And then that will be able to sustain you as you go through different hurdles and things like that. So that's amazing. Absolutely applaud you on that and that effort. But your background, I would imagine, huge serves you hugely in being able to do that too. So,
Well, I always found it interesting. I worked in HR and benefits
mhm,
administration at one point in time. And I always found it interesting that people thought just because they paid people that they would stay there. I always see anyone as a volunteer and to be grateful for them and take really good care of them. But just because you pay someone really, really well doesn't mean that they're particularly enjoying what they do.
mhm.
And so
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
so true.
important. How do you make sure they're doing that? How do you make sure they're
Yeah.
in their what I call where's your joy? And how can I make sure you're in your joy point? Like for our CPO, her joy point is launches, and she's done global launches for very large technology companies.
Mhm.
And so I know when it comes to launching, that's her joy point. So make sure she has as much of that as she wants. And that's how I like to operate with people is where's your
Yeah.
joy point? What do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy? Even though we wear a lot of hats at a startup,
Mhm.
if we know someone's really far out of their joy point, we know that they're really grinding and their bandwidth may be constrained, right?
Mhm.
And so we can honor that, right? Myself included. I have joy
Yeah.
points and I have areas that are definitely far from that.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
knowing that though is a huge benefit too, because then you can start to shape the roles and the responsibilities, and then you're going to get the most out of your people because they're doing
Right.
something that they enjoy. So yeah, kudos to you in the way that you've built Lexibl and what you guys are working towards. Final couple of questions for you. What is the impact that you want to have made when you're gone?
Well, clearly leaving the world changed and impacted in revolutionizing reading,
Hmm.
right? After that, I'd really like to have a foundation where I can start to invest in people that are underserved or overlooked and start to look at what other people are creating and doing in the world and leave, but besides technology, leaving a piece of technology behind, leave people moved inspired and also impacted in a positive way. So that's what I have planned for my life. I'm very crystal clear on where I'm going.
I love that. And then final question, what summit are you currently chasing?
Well, clearly the reading summit.
Yeah.
So how do we make reading easy for people to do, allow them to keep their focus and make it so that it's predictable and understandable? So that's the summit I'm changing, is revolutionizing reading in all
Yep.
ways.
It's a much needed one to be going after. So thank you so much. How can people find you and Lexibl?
Lexibl.com. Funny story. I woke up in the middle of the night to change the name. We've had like 4 names. I think we were Book Sherpa before, and Lexibl came to me in my sleep. So I woke up and changed the name and misspelled it. So not ironic that a dyslexic ADHD founder has a misspelled name, but it's Lex as in X-ray, B as in boy, L.com. So Lexibl, as in dyslexia made accessible. And Lulu Waters, I'm Lulu Waters on LinkedIn. I'm not really on any other socials, but I just tend to be on LinkedIn the most.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for your time, Audrina. I really enjoyed our chat.
And that wraps up another episode of Voices of Impact. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you found value in our conversation, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more inspiring stories and actionable advice, make sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Also, we would love to hear your thoughts and takeaways, so please leave us a comment below. And remember, no matter where you are on your journey, you have the power to climb higher and chase your summit. Until next time, Summit Chasers, keep pushing forward and stay inspired.